From a multi-award-winning short film to an honourable mention at the Oscars and over 20 years of experience in the industry, Ulysses Oliver makes his feature directorial debut with Love Road that will be screening as part of the 2023 Sydney Film Festival. An intense relationship drama jumping across three time periods, detailing the highs and lows of a tempestuous relationship. Ulysses Oliver, thank you so much and welcome to the For Your Reference podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Well, first of all, congratulations on your directorial debut. You do have experience in the industry, so I would love to know, hear a bit about the process leading up to and finalizing this glorious film.
Yeah, well, I suppose I come from a producing background, primarily. Went to film school, yeah, about, oh God, 20 or so years ago now. And um, came at Love Road with a desire to make a feature film. I suppose coming from a perspective of, for me as a filmmaker, I'm not just a writer, creative person. I'm also interested in the process and what it takes to get a feature film made. And so this felt like it was a marriage of a bunch of ideas that had been going around in my head around relationships, maybe some things I was processing around, you know, parents coming to the end of their life and dealing with that, but also a vehicle that was possible to keep quite contained within primarily it was a 2 week time span that we shot the film in, and this felt like it was achievable. So and yeah, that's kind of been my journey a bit as a filmmaker, as a producer, as a director, is trying to work out how to make well, initially long form and music videos and working in the corporate world, but also long form content now that's achievable at on a shoestring, a fraction of the price of what the conventional route is, I suppose. And it's yeah, so this is a bit of an experiment in a way to see what was achievable for very little, and it's kind of it has springboarded a bunch of other productions that we're rolling out at the moment consecutively.
Yeah, and I'd love to talk a little bit about Breathless Films maybe a little bit later.
Yeah,
But you did touch on the fact that it was filmed in 2 weeks. And, even to my amateur film sort of view, I know that's not a lot of time. And I think it was also shot around the time of the bushfires as well.
that's correct. Yeah, yeah, 2 weeks. We went on. Well, it's a non-linear film, so there's kind of three different time spans that we cover, and so we had I think 4 days for each time span. We kind of literally did a loop that went up through the kind of northern part of the Blue Mountains and Windsor and the kind of northwest parts of Sydney. Um, and yeah, did a crazy all in. There was a crew of there was like two vehicles, so it was whoever could fit in two vehicles,
Yeah.
include cast and crew included. And kind of did these road trips.
Mm.
Yeah, so it was, it was kind of inspired by maybe some films of the 70s, like The Inventors, or these kind of road trip. We'll shoot what we can find along the way, kind of while having a kind of obviously a script to work off at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. The tone had a wistful sort of melancholy to it. Even while watching it, I was wondering, was that intentional or did it start to morph and shape as you started writing?
Yeah, well, I think we're dealing with some fairly complex issues, themes. Um, I think, yeah, the choice pretty early on for me was to have our main character kind of looking back on, I guess, a tumultuous, tempestuous relationship,
Mhm.
and that it was kind of like the way we process memories.
Yeah.
And
Does that
so
mean you're choosing sides between Jazz and Daniel potentially?
I don't know. Yeah, it was meant to be 50-50, but I think maybe the film leans. I'll let the audience choose which way they lean. But yeah, I suppose I did lean towards her perspective in
Mm-hmm.
the end, and that was more maybe an editing choice of where the direction it went in,
Yeah.
rather than an intention when I was writing it. Yeah, I think tried to weave in, the more the younger, more playful sides of love,
Mm-hmm.
but then obviously there's she's looking back on some fairly heavy going, very dysfunctional parts of the relationship and some heavy stuff that happens to them.
Yeah.
So which probably trumps the good stuff. And so it does maybe ends up being more melancholy, but yeah. And maybe she's in a melancholy place when we kind of find her in that third time period as well, that she has to find her way out of. So it probably leans towards that as well.
Well, I guess that's one of the themes that I wanted to talk about with you was the relationship dynamics, in that balance of wanting to give it more fire because they were very fiery together,
Mm.
or when to draw back and be a bit more somber. How was that sort of balance?
Yeah, I did the first edit I found was it was too yeah, that there was too much of them just fighting all the time. And yes, I
Mm,
wanted them to be kind of stuck in a loop of, because I do think this is what happens in
yeah,
relationships.
yeah,
You
yeah.
kind of you
I'm
just get stuck in
yelling, you're
a dysfunctional
yelling, you're
cycle all the
yelling.
time, and that which you don't know how to get out of, and you can't help yourself. And
Yeah.
uh, but also wanted the audience to root for them to it at the same time. And yeah, the first edit was, oh, we've given up on this couple right from the get go, and there's no way, get it. Why are you guys wasting your time?
Hmm.
So I did, but fortunately, I mean, it was always a non-linear by story by design and scripted
Yeah.
that way, but we did have, I guess, the luxury almost, for better or for worse, of trying to shift a few things around to such
Mm,
that the trajectory was a little bit more gradual at parts and leaning in on some of the more whimsical, light-hearted playfulness, and much as it always kind of ends,
yeah,
seems
yeah,
to go
yeah.
in the wrong direction for them. Yeah, and the heavier stuff kind of pushed later into the film, and maybe we tease at some of the heavier stuff at the beginning rather than giving too much away. But hopefully that was successful.
It's a
Um,
tonal sort of dance that's always very interesting, because there's the dynamics of a couple, which I guess you could agree or disagree that it works or it doesn't work, and then it's just like personalities because Daniel would very much be someone that would say something, whether he means it or not, but he knows it's going to
mm.
hurt. And I'm like, oh, you know what you're doing, and I think that's the beauty of Love Road because that's life,
Yeah,
that's the interconnectedness or the disconnect, I guess, that we have in life as well. And I guess that's also a great way to draw to the sprawling sort of landscape and the shots and, the time and attention that was taken. We talked about yelling couples and that sort of thing. There's probably
mm,
nothing better than being isolated,
mm.
away from the city. So you can literally just have like a mental checkout.
Yeah. I think that was the idea, right? It's like, I mean, why are we just looking at them over this same terrain that they take?
Mm,
Rather, obviously there's the rest of their life in between that happens, but it was interesting to kind of cut out the rest of that life and really focusing on, like you say, it's when you're alone in a car and you don't have the distractions of everyday life. It might be a road trip or you go traveling together or whatever it might be, that forces you to look at your relationship. And also, maybe something about revisiting these same places, obviously, which was triggering other memories that they had and forcing them to revisit those parts of their relationship, such that they could look at themselves in terms of how their relationships changed,
Yeah.
how they've grown over, I don't really label it, but I imagine it's kind of like a 2 year gap between the different 1.5, 2 year gap between the different
Mm.
timelines. Yeah, so that was that. I mean, and then I mean, just talking to them, maybe the why do it in a non-linear fashion as well was
Yeah.
that I wanted that kind of, it's a fragmented relationship. So I wanted to tell it in a kind of a fragmented
Mhm.
way to put the audience, maybe a bit like Guy Pearce's character in Memento, where you're playing catch
Yeah.
up, and so you get into the mindset of somebody with amnesia. Here,
Mm.
you're going in on these fragmented memories, and that puts you into the mindset of these two characters that are
Yeah.
trying to get their head around what's gone wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I understand
yeah,
that. Because you're
mm,
in the moment, but even then you can be drawn back to memories and moments, or maybe you haven't healed from, or you haven't addressed moments as a couple. So you're always going to go back
yeah,
to the past and flip forward and flip back. And another one of the relationship dynamics that I wanted to quickly touch on was grief, which is what you
yeah,
talked about a little bit early.
yeah,
I do love an insular story that surrounds grief. I love being able to explore the human experience, and I think there's nothing more real
mm,
than loving and letting go. And
yeah,
it is unfortunate and it is sad, but I love the way that Love Road explored that through Jazz's mum.
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
If
Unfortunately,
that's not a spoiler, sorry.
oh well, no, no, it's fine. I think it's hopefully happens in the first act there that you get that the mother's passed away. And yeah, I think look, I would personally, that's something I was going through was having yeah, well, both my parents passed away in a fairly short period of time.
Sorry to hear that.
Thank you. And yeah, I suppose I do lean towards Jazz's perspective, maybe because of that. Jazz, I think I made Jazz probably a female to give myself a degree
Mm,
of separation there. And
yeah.
okay, it's not me, but yeah, I wanted, I guess ultimately it's she finds, hopefully I do feel this way about both my parents that
Mm,
in a way I appreciate them more now than when, um, particularly later in life as you become an adult and
yeah.
have a family or whatever, your parents become just a bit of an annoyance. And yeah, I would constantly fight with both of my parents,
Mm,
and after they passed, it was yeah, I was just wow, why couldn't we get it together to have a more healthy relationship?
yeah.
And then maybe that I appreciate and love them more now than when they were here, which is a sad irony and obviously yeah, with a bit of a spoiler maybe, but a theme of the story. Yeah.
I think that's absolutely, even if it is through fighting, even if there isn't an understanding, any sort of time with family, understanding the sort of dynamics is also something that's really special. So
Mm,
I personally believe
yeah.
art is a way to channel emotion and channel
Mm.
change. So I'm glad that you had this outlet, and we also have the outlet to express through Love Road. I do have a final question, but is there anything before that final question that you want to say about Breathless Films? It was really great researching on the website, talking about the vision and the goals. So I'd like to hear a little bit about that, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, well, it's really exciting. Yeah, we've got Love Road. We also have Bird Eater by Jack Clark and Jim Weir, and we have Tennessee by Amin Palangi
Yep,
coming up at Sydney Film Festival.
yep. I'll be chatting to
So
him later today.
fantastic. So go and check those films out as well. And we had a Craig Borum film Lonesome and Molly Haddon film The Longest Weekend released last year. So yeah, we've made 5 films in a few years,
Mm.
and it has been a mammoth effort by a lot of people, but trying to make films, I guess, outside of the conventional system, which has meant a lot of challenges, a lot of limitations, but yeah, we think that's really healthy for filmmakers to be thinking about how you can do films that, particularly if you're maybe your first feature, or or even if you've just, I don't believe in waiting around and making a film once every 5 years as a filmmaker. It's just, I think that's madness, and it tends to be what happens in Australia. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that thinking, rather than thinking of like the blue sky vision of what you want to make, um, putting your producer's hat on, and thinking about what's achievable
Yeah.
with the resources that you have at your disposal, and developing creative teams around you that shares that same vision. So that, I guess, that's what we've been trying to do, and encourage that type of filmmaking, and having some, maybe some good festival success. We're trying to work out how to make it financially viable as well, to create a kind of cycle of an ecosystem, if you like, of independent film in Australia. So yeah, that's the short of it.
Yeah.
Um,
We're getting into the breathless pantry. We're grabbing the ingredients and we're seeing what we can make. I love it. It's
That's
great.
it. That's it. But and it's not just Breath. It's like all of these productions have the filmmakers brought their own creatives and crew and actors, and funds in some cases into each of the films as well, and so it wouldn't happen without all of that. So it's been a kind of a marriage of convenience and inspiration and creativity on all the productions, which I think is what you have to do to get it done.
A communal pantry, even
That,
better.
that's it. That's it.
So we usually finish our reviews with a recommendation. So what would you add with Love Road as a double feature?
Oh, jeez. I'm well. I'm going to be biased and say go and see Tennessee.
Love it.
Yeah. Um, for lack of I need to see all the other films in the festival first. But yes, Love Road and Tennessee, both stories of, um, I suppose, love. Love. I don't want to give away too many spoilers, but
It's all love.
because those stories of love challenges. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
You'll talk to but yeah, very different story, very different perspective, very different characters. But
Hmm.
it's interesting, maybe, that Love Road is more told from a perspective of, I guess, jazz um, and Daniel are more characters maybe that we've grown up with in Australia anyway, and then in Tennessee, the story of immigrants coming to Australia, and the struggles with
Yeah.
that a relationship faces with that. Yeah.
Well, as it so happened, I happened to double feature Love Road and Tennessee.
I thought you
So
might
I already done my
have.
homework. Catch up,
Yeah.
friends and lovers. Thank you so much, Ulysses. I really appreciated the time. Thank you so much.
Pleasure, absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.